Good afternoon and welcome to today's lunch break with the Rabbi. As a quick reminder, just a little commercial over here for our upcoming JLI course, which is going to be Secrets of the Bible. Make sure you sign up and register for Secrets of the Bible. The books are coming. Those who registered online, well, God willing, you can either come pick them up in person or we'll try to get those books to you before the class begins. That's going to be November 10th. We'll begin the JLI course. You can either do it in person or watch it online in Zoom. Once you register, we will then send you the Zoom links that you can participate in these classes. So again, starting November 10th, Secrets of the Bible, great course. I encourage you all to attend. If you're enjoying these lunch breaks, that will be even more fabulous. In continuing in our conversation, in our myths and facts, or fascinating facts of Judaism, we will continue to start with, yesterday we continued discussing now everything in the Torah is a lesson. The Torah is not a history book. The Torah is a contemporary guide for everything in our life. So we will start with something we discussed last week, but just dispelling a little bit of the myth and going beyond the scene of where it all comes from. The first and most famous story of Adam and Eve. And one of the most common questions that people ask is what kind of fruit did Adam eat from the tree of knowledge? Did the snake give to Eve and then Eve gave it to Adam? What was that tree? Now, if you look in the Torah does not mention what kind of fruit tree it was at all. The Torah just says it was the tree of knowledge without mentioning what the forbidden fruit was. No mention what kind of tree it was, what kind of fruit it was, where the fruit was, and what was a tree, anything of that nature. Most cultural references, and if you are familiar with any Bible story, they will call it an Adam and Eve gave the apple of the tree. Where does that come from? For example, people use it that men have an Adam's apple. If it comes from the Adam apple of the tree, where does it come from? Or if you look at all these pictures that they have of Adam and Eve, these artist renditions of Adam and Eve, you will see sometimes they use an apple. But where does it come from? The widespread myth came from the fact that apples in Latin are the word malum. Now, the word malum in Latin can be transferred to be sometimes meaning apples and also means evil. And the original translation of the malum, meaning that they ate from the tree of knowledge, which caused them was the birth of all evil. Because before that, there was no concept of evil. Before that, everything was good, as we mentioned in last week's Torah reading. And because of eating the tree of knowledge, evil came to the world. Because of that, the whole narrative and the picture became that they ate an apple. But nowhere in the Torah does it mention any name of the fruit of the tree or the tree of knowledge. It just says literally the tree of knowledge, not what kind of tree, not what kind of fruit it was, and whatever it may be. So the Torah does not identify the fruit anywhere. However, to be sure, not only cultural artists have speculated what that fruit may have been, but also rabbinic scholars in the Talmud suggest what that fruit may have been. And there are many different opinions. One opinion was that it was an esrog. That Medrash says it was an esrog tree. The reason why the one opinion is the esrog, because the commentators explain that it says that the tree of knowledge, its fruit and its tree and its wood had the same taste. And what kind of tree do we know its fruit and tree have the same taste is an esrog. Another commentator says it was a fig tree, because we look right after the reference when Adam and Eve found out that they were naked. Immediately afterwards, it says that God made them clothing out of leaves of a fig. So probably it was from the tree that they ate. In fact, just a little tidbit, in the drawing of Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, that's in the roof, and it has a picture of Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge. The picture there is that he's taking a fig, and some want to say that Michelangelo's artistic renditions come from rabbinic sources, and therefore he used a fig, as we're going to get to in a later discussion about another one of Michelangelo's pictures that will come into discussion as well. Another interpretation is it was a grapevine. And the reason why it's a grapevine, because they say one of the reasons why we make Kiddush and all holy things begin with making a blessing on wine is to rectify the different sins that happened with grapes, which is, if we look throughout, just in the book of Genesis, 3 of the major events that caused catastrophic events in life happened because of wine. If you believe that the tree of knowledge was because of grapes, that's one of them. Another one is that we read in this week's Torah reading, today's Torah reading, where Noah gets drunk after after coming out of the ark, and because of that, he is sodomized by his grandson. And then later on, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to read about Lot getting drunk, and that's when he is raped by his daughters. So again, we see that wine caused terrible events, and because of that, we make Kiddush on wine to rectify those terrible events that may have happened. But what we see from here is that all of these, and in fact, there's one interpretation, one rabbi says it was wheat stalks, very tall wheat stalks, and therefore was considered like a tree. But none of these suggest that this must be it exactly, and all of them want to make just suggestions and recommendations based on certain different interpretations. But what we do find is that the Medrash says something very unique, that the Torah specifically did not reveal what kind of tree it was. Now think of it why. Imagine you would know what kind of tree Adam and Eve ate from. And Adam and Eve's eating from the tree of knowledge caused irreplaceable damage. Irrefutable damage. Damage that's happening for generations to come every time a mother's having childbirth or a guy is sweating to be able to make a living. It's all because of the eating of the tree of knowledge. Imagine how many times that tree would have been cursed by many individuals throughout the past 5,000 years. So what did God do? He never revealed what kind of tree it was, so nobody should slander that kind of fruit tree. So nobody should talk ill against it. Now, as we remember, everything in the Torah is a lesson. Number one lesson we can learn from here is that the Torah does not mention even the name of a tree, because the Torah does not want us to speak ill even against the tree. How much more so we need to be careful not to speak ill against another person. Number two, the Torah, when it wants to clearly exercise its ability to describe something in detail, it doesn't mince its words. For example, in this week's Torah reading, the Torah tells us the exact measurement of Noah's Ark. Not only the exact measurement, the exact material, what kind of wood, where we should put the tar, where we should put the gopher, and all that stuff. So when the Torah is vague about a certain specific thing, it's because it's teaching us specifically this idea. To tell us that I am not telling you what tree it is because you should learn something from it. Don't speak ill about anything, even a tree. Take into another account where another tree happens. There later on, about 2,000 years after this episode, Moses is a shepherd running after a little lamb, and he sees a burning bush. And over there, the Torah is very descriptive to say what kind of bush it was. A thorn bush. And he sees the image of God is coming to him and speaking to him from a thorn bush. And the Torah describes it was a thorn bush. The fire was there, but it wasn't really burning it. But why a thorn bush? Why does the Torah have to tell us what kind of bush? Do we really care? Because over here also there's a lesson. Because when the Torah does describe what kind of tree, there's a purpose for it. And over here, the lesson that the Torah is telling us about a thorn bush is because what was God coming to tell Moses? Take the Jewish people out of Egypt. Remind them that there's a God that's thinking of them and taking them out of Egypt. Teaching us that when you see a Jew suffer, when the Jewish people are suffering, they should not think that they're on their own, but they should remember God's in the thorn bush. God is suffering together with you. So when a Jew or a person goes on in life, in any time in life, not only the Jews in Egypt, but any person who's going through different tumultuous trials and tribulations in life and having different challenges, number one, they should know they're not doing it alone. God is with them. God is in the thorn bush. God is with you in your pain, in your suffering, and it will eventually get you out of there. You're not going through it alone. God is always with you. You know, always in advertising, you'll notice the most effective way of advertising, or what billboard ads do you look at? If it's only text, you're probably not going to look at it. You don't want to read another thing. But when there's a picture of a person there, especially a person, or if you're older person, and you see a picture of an older person, you're most probably going to read that ad. Or if you're a young person, you have children, you see a picture of a baby in the picture, you're probably going to read that ad. Why is that? Because you see yourself, so to speak, in that ad. The same idea is when we study the Torah. The reason why God purposely describes and depicts certain items is because we should see ourselves in the picture. We have to see ourselves in the Torah, realizing, recognizing the ideas and the facts, even though it seems like a story from many, many years ago, a thorn bush, a tree of knowledge, but we are part of the story. Whether it's a story of not slandering even a tree and not speaking ill against another person, or realizing and recognizing that in everything we do, God is with us through our triumphs and through our troubles, through our challenges and through our successes. God is there holding our hand. Just a little tidbit. You know, we talk about finding fascinating facts in the Torah. So here's one for you. You ever hear the expression, the writings on the wall? Where do you think that came from? That's from the Torah too. In the book of Daniel, the king Belshazzar made a great feast and had vessels from his grandfather Nebuchadnezzar all over the place, taken from the holy temple, and they were brought to the feast, and he was desecrating God's name. And when all the king's wishes were fulfilled, all of a sudden, there was an image writing in Aramaic on the wall. The king didn't know what to do. He quickly called Daniel, the Jewish advisor, and asked him what that means. And Daniel explained to him and said that exactly what it says on the wall, the writings on the wall, exactly what's going to happen to the king Belshazzar is going to happen to the king. On the wall it said, Minei, Minei, Tekel Ufarsin, which means that God has counted the days of your kingdom and you're going to be destroyed. And lo and behold, the next day, King Belshazzar was assassinated, and Media and Persia were conquered by the Babylonian Empire. The writing is on the wall. Why do I say this? The writing is on the wall. Everything that happens in life is in the Torah. And God is teaching us that when we look at the world and we look at ourselves, we have to look to become better people because of the events that happen in the world. Not to become like those events, but to always learn from them events and to be able to become better because of it. So let us take these two lessons that we learned today. Number one, be careful how we speak. Not to talk ill of others, even if we disagree, even if they caused the most greatest sin. Number two, remember, most importantly, whatever you do, wherever you go, and whatever comes with you in life, God is holding your hand and is with you as you do it. From the failures to the successes, from the challenges to the triumphs, God is there with you at every step of the game. God bless you. May we only see God healthy and well and appreciate and love our success and happiness in life. God bless you. Wishing you a wonderful day. Looking forward to meeting with you again tomorrow at 1 p.m.